Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, Trevor?
What is going on? Today we are going to be talking all about the anime film Belle, which Cameron was finally able to go check out. I have some extensive thoughts on Nobody Saves the World, and then we're going to talk about Haven and Pokemon Legends Arceus. Am I saying that right? Arceus, right?
It's Arceus.
Arceus? Okay.
Yeah, I know. I too thought it would for sure be Arceus, but apparently it's Arceus.
Oh,
So
do they say it in the game or something to
no, but
confirm?
enough people who I would think would know it.
They've said it
have
in
been
the
saying
anime
it.
at some point, probably. So yeah, all right.
I'm sure it's that, but I've mostly heard it from people people who should know and
Mhm.
would know say it's Arceus, even though I do not think that's the way that it should be pronounced based off of phonetics.
Yeah.
But
Well, we were all pronouncing Kena Bridge of Spirits wrong for, a year and a half before that game finally came out, and they were like, "Oh no, it's Kena. Like her name is Kena. She says Kena a lot." Anyway, before we dive into that, a little bit of housekeeping for you. You can go check out That Bond Show every Saturday over on youtube.com/thatnerdysite. Where myself and Logan have been going through all the Bond films. We are basically up to the end of the original Sean Connery run thus far, so you can go see all the way up through You Only Live Twice. So yeah, go check that out. It is a YouTube-only offering for us. So yeah, go check that out and support it. You can also check out kind of each week Logan does a written review / write-up of his favorite elements of that the movie of the week effectively over there. Looking forward to sitting down peek behind the curtain. We're at Live and Let Die is the next one we're going to actually sit down and record on our end of things, and Cameron and Frank are going to be joining us for that, so that should be a fun one. And then also you can go check out all of our assorted best of lists from 2021 that are finally kind of making their way up onto the site. I know at least my favorite platinums of 2021, favorite platinum trophies of 2021 will be up by the time you are listening to this. As well as some of our assorted personal best of games, movies, all that stuff should be going onto the site here in the coming days. And once again, or as always, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends everywhere you can, all that fun stuff. So Cam, let's kick it off here with Belle. This is one I know you'd been wanting to see for a while. And we even talked about potentially going to see it together, but I had work, and that was going to be a kind of a tricky thing to try and navigate. So you ended up going seeing it solo. What did you think? And what's the elevator pitch behind Belle? Like who's the director?
sure.
What other things have they done? Kind of stuff that I or other people might know. And then the pitch itself, and then the movie. How'd it pay off?
Sure. So, kind of the elevator pitch of it is, what if Beauty and the Beast was a more like a fun mix of sci-fi / rural Japanese life, and would take on the idea of a cyber world, or as we are now apparently calling all of these places, a metaverse, called You, which is where people would be able to express themselves and who they truly are through an anonymized system that basically lets them start a completely separate life from their. Um, it's a weird, convoluted little pitch and premise, but basically the idea is, in this world where you can be whoever you want, two individuals happen to be a young woman from rural Japan who is struggling to deal with the death of her mother years before, and find her ability to sing again. And the other character is a very dominant and powerful figure in You, called the Dragon or the Beast, by it starts off that he's called the dragon at the beginning of the film, and then later he's coined by a bad head of PR as the Beast. And so it kind of develops into a Beauty and the Beast-esque story, but told through a completely different medium and kind of platform than your traditional fairy tale. Is kind of like the pitch and the premise of it.
Got it. Is it?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, when they coin him the Beast, is this like, or is there any sense of like, oh, this is a world in which like the story of Beauty and the Beast exists, or is it just like, no, we're just kind of like taking those ideas and those tropes of that story and putting it in here?
It does, like, it's not clear on that one way or the other. It never really comes up.
If it doesn't really come up, I assume it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
a no.
that's it's the nobody in zombie movies ever know what a zombie is kind of thing.
Yeah, it's that sort of a kind of like take and premise of it for sure. Or sorry, a take and kind of interpretation of it for sure. But in this case, like the girl's name is Suzu, and which is Japanese for like Belle, like the item. And so she puts in her name Bell into the U like platform, and when she takes off as a singer, she's kind of rebranded as Belle, Belle, which in French means beautiful. And like the only thing she feels like her that has been carried over for her as far as her character goes in real life, the transition to this online world, is like basically she's like she has freckles on her face. And so like it's a whole thing about and so like you think, oh hey, this is going to be a like Beauty and the Beast premise, like how is this going to work into it? I'm just going to let you know it really doesn't. It takes motifs and iconography that you would associate with Beauty and the Beast, particularly the Disney animated Beauty and the Beast. I would say it definitely takes a lot of like kind of things like that, but what it fails to, and I'm just going to put it out there, this film is one of the most gorgeous films I've ever seen in my entire life. It is astounding how incredible this 3D animation is, because it's a 2D animation in the real world and the 3D animation in the U world, and it is absolutely stunning and stellar. The director of the film is Mamoru Hosoda, who is a director behind things like Wolf Children, and like he's worked with Studio Ghibli, Toei Animation, worked with Madhouse, just has been an absolute stunning director and just an absolutely incredible like animation director for years. He has written 3 of the films that he's directed himself, which are The Boy and the Beast, Mirai, and now Belle. He's probably best known though for The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, which was his not his debut piece, but it definitely was like the first one to kind of like he was well regarded for after he made it. Summer Wars, which isn't really just like bonkers, crazy, awesome film that has a lot of the idea of like an online world matching up well with kind of like what they were trying to do with you in this film, which is why when they're like, yeah, it's gonna be like an online world thing, I definitely appreciate it. And I apologize, I can't hear you, Trevor, if you're talking because my headset just died out and I'm about to plug it in. My apologies.
No worries. I wasn't speaking.
There we go. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Were you saying anything while I was talking? Because I couldn't hear you for a bit. Okay. Yeah, so Summer Wars has a bit of like that online world like kind of like feel of it that you would think works well with, because in regards to it's kind of like being a way of bouncing into the world of you and Belle. And I would say animation wise, it definitely does that. The 3D animation in the world of you is incredible, and he is just does such a good job of. The greatest problem I feel with 3D animation is that it often feels empty. There's so much effort put into the production of these products that ends up leaving a lot of empty space. And like it's really too a great misfortune because 3D animation is supposed to make things easier to animate or more accessible to animation like approaches. And unfortunately, it often leaves a lot to be desired of, whether it's through like ancillary things like clipping, like models clipping and things like that, but also just a lot of times you watch these 3D shows, especially kids shows, and these 3D worlds are just vacant and empty and don't feel lived in. And something that I think Hosoda understood from the get go is, if this is an online world where we're saying there's like 500 million users on at any given time, um, like what does that actually mean? Like, what are the actual like what should that world actually look like? And I think the world of you is very much a great and cool, fantastical take on that kind of concept of this, burgeoning metropolis that is just filled to the brim with people and their like their avatars that make up who they truly are. And it really does a great job of portraying that very well, and also just like a very low tech approach to something. Like it's all it is just some custom headphones you put in your ears, and that's how you get into it through like your cell phone, through a cell phone app. And it's very much into that level of simplicity. There's no headsets, there's no rigs, there's none of that. And so it makes it like it's fantastical in its application, but it's very approachable in kind of like its presentation in a way that like I've really, really appreciated and liked out of it. The characters themselves are pretty interesting. But like I said at the beginning when I explained this, if you were expecting a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, it doesn't really happen here. And the thing about it is, and this is probably my strongest criticism against it, is like this is a film that is on just about every level a 10 out of 10, whether it's animation, music, like a lot of the characters and a lot of the stuff within the film itself. But its narrative is it's I don't want to like backseat direct here or like coming here, but I have to say that like it made a decision to take certain things from Beauty and the Beast, but it either took the wrong things or it didn't take enough of it to convey why the things it did take were important. There's also a weird level of like there's several plot holes in the film that don't make any sense. And like one character revealing like, hey, like I need to talk to you. And it's like, oh, well, I need to talk to you too. It's like, yeah, is it because I know you're Belle? And it's like, first off, dude, you're like, that's never explained. Like some guy just randomly knows that her secret identity of this like this chart pop star person on this platform that it's like, does he even use? Is he even on it? His stuff is never like the biggest struggle of this story is that it spends so much time focusing on a childhood friend / love interest that has no practical application to the other side of the story of this online world and platform. He has almost zero connection to it. And yet he is this it's such a weird and like oddly placed story motif to make the film kind of like its own, but it doesn't actually it doesn't successfully convey it. And like a part of the problem is that Beauty and the Beast isn't just Belle's story. It's Belle discovering like who the Beast is, and the Beast's story kind of unveiling itself as he reapproaches humanity. Because like for people who don't know, the Beauty and the Beast is a young boy who's the prince of a castle gets turned into a beast and spends a decade plus, depending on the story that's being told, he could be spending a lot more time there. But essentially, it's like this is somebody who was a child who has grown through this process of being a beast and being absent of humanity. And Belle reintroduces humanity to him and helps him grow and become an actual person. And that's the beast side of Beauty and the Beast, of like the story that's being told. Um, we don't get that storytelling. They pull in these characters that are supposed to be analogs to kind of the staff, the servants of the castle that have been transformed into to inanimate objects. And rather than like that doesn't tie into anything. There's no greater like tie into that. They're just there. And then when something bad happens to them, you're supposed to care about that somehow, and it doesn't really work. There's a lot of stuff, and there's some like weird like pseudo karmic Houdini stuff that happens for one of the antagonists, and then it delves into the thing that it probably delves into the most that kind of came out of left field, but makes sense is like there's like child abuse brought up in this film that's like represented very real in a way that Japanese media, like especially animated stuff, doesn't normally let happen or get into happening. And it kind of takes a very like adult conversation about it. But also how it resolves that is just very weird. And so like it's struggling to tell it's very clear what the intention was with this story and what it was trying to do. But there are so many hurdles that it gives itself that it's very difficult for it to overcome. And so its narrative and its character development is lopsided and oftentimes like doesn't make sense. Now I should put out here, I intended to go see this in English. Because I've heard a lot about how the English voice cast got together, how they put this production together for the English speaking audience, and how, like the search they did to find the right person to play Suzu/Belle, and kind of what they were doing with that. I've listened to a lot of the music in English that I've previously listened to in Japanese, and I really liked what I was hearing from that. So I was really really looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened, but like at the last minute, I guess they switched up, or like I got pointed to the wrong theater, or something wrong happened, and so instead of seeing it in English, I saw it in its original Japanese. That being said, like I don't think that anything was mistranslated or anything like that, but I do feel like, I don't know, I feel like there is just there's potentially something that I might have missed because of the language crossover, but
so you think like the dub just was not the dub, the subtitles just weren't accurate, or
they may not have conveyed a meaning that you would have translated into a way. For example, like there are turns of phrases in Japanese that I'm not familiar with. And so if it gets translated straightforward as a straightforward translation, it doesn't always come across with the meaning that it's supposed to have. And so that's entirely possible, could have happened for some of these scenes, but it doesn't excuse a lot of the structural issues of the narrative, the odd the off-balance character development that happens at different times, and kind of the things that it chooses to focus on. Like, this film is not a romantic story. It's not a love story. It's a story about overcoming grief and loss. And that doesn't necessarily really fit with the kind of narrative of Beauty and the Beast, which is, not necessarily about those themes. And instead of those themes being put into the story itself and then used as a way of elevating the story, it completely deviates from every other element of the story itself. And while that part of the story that they focused on is beautiful and poignant, it has an issue where that doesn't work on a lot of levels and a lot of different applications. And it's really unfortunate, I think, that it this kind of convoluted and overbearingly difficult narrative, which only has Hosoda only has himself to blame for that, really, because is this the story that he wanted to tell? Great, I'm glad that he got to tell it. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, its music is incredible, both soundtrack and vocal tracks. But at the end of the day, it does not, like, the choices that are made do not serve the overall narrative and the overall storytelling nor the characters in many, many instances. And because of that, um, it just doesn't work, which is extremely disappointing because I've been looking forward to this film since 2019. I've been looking forward to this film since before the pandemic, man.
Yeah.
Like, like I saw the trailers when I was living at the house that I lived in before the one I'm in now.
Hmm.
Like the place I live, like, so we're talking before I moved at the end of 2019. It was the sun, like, it was, we were getting ready to move, and I remember the first teaser trailer with with the first big song pop up, and holy crap, like, it blew me away. I was so excited. Hosoda is one of my favorite directors. Wolf Children is still one of my favorite films of all time. It's emotionally like, and I thought if anybody could really delve into the emotional devastation that can be part of the Beauty and the Beast storytelling, Hosoda could do it. And then he just chooses not to do it at all.
Is it,
And
I
it's
mean,
frustrating.
is there enough? Because you said, like, you kind of started by saying, like, everything outside of this narrative element is like a 10 out of 10. So is there enough there to, like, merit, like, going back and enjoying and rewatching and just kind of like letting the narrative not play as much of a role in your enjoyment of the thing? Or is it the kind of thing that the narrative is just so it weighs all those other elements down so much that it's just not an enjoyable experience for you?
Let me put it out there. I'm the kind of person that if I find something like this that I really get, like, it really gets its hooks in me as far as like the problems I have with it, I don't think I would find it as enjoyable going back to watch it. That being said, the music's like fantastic, and I think if narrative is not that strong of a point, I'm thinking of more of like for our good friend Christian, Pixel Brave, as somebody who cares a lot more about animation and that sort of stuff. Like, I can see him and a lot of other people going back to this movie and enjoying it for what it has in spades, and what it does well. But I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those people that like one of Hosoda's things that he does is I'm always very interested in the narrative avenues he takes as a writer. Um, Although I know he didn't write Wolf Children, like his direction of how he took that story really like is super impressive to me. But probably the Beast and His Boy, or Boy and His Beast, I forgot what the actual title is, but is one of my favorite films that he's done. And it's a story about like abandonment and when you're alone and kind of the strength of what it means to be alone, but how much stronger you are when you have people you care about. And it is fantastical and wonderful in the like gnarliest and craziest of ways. But at the end of the day, I just really look at that. I look at what he's done with also Mirai, which is a like very not kind of film that you'd expect out of him, but does a great job of, you know, conveying a message and an idea about who we are as a people, who we are as families. I'm almost positive that's the one I'm thinking. Yeah, it is. That's the one I'm thinking of. Um, and it's about family and like it's about the importance of family and storytelling within families. And he does such a great job of that and conveying that through. I just think that Belle is just, as far as like a narrative goes, like a real big whiff from him. You know, but he swung for the fences with everything else and he nailed it. So, you know, I give massive props to that. If you are not so hung up on the storytelling of a film and you are just really wanting to watch a beautiful animated feature with incredible music and performances, by far, like, I cannot stop suggesting it. I would say like and it's funny cut too because there are scenes of this film that work super well, that are super good. Like, there are some really great moments of, you know, showing who characters truly are. Like, Suzu is a girl who's very like, she's extremely shy. She's a wallflower, and by being part of Belle, by creating Belle and living through Belle, she's able to find an internal strength within herself to overcome like her anxiety and challenges. And she takes strong moral stances when she's faced with like tremendous pressure from outside forces to kind of give up on the beast and turn the beast in. and she chooses, like, her motivation is to search out for the beast, is not one of like, oh, I'm going to be kidnapped and kept in this castle. It's is motivated by, she sees somebody in pain and somebody that's hurting, and her desire is to figure out like what she can do to help that person. And it's a really, like, and like I said, I love the characters of this film. Um, it just does not, the narrative just does not do them justice, and it doesn't do the other parts of this production justice, and is just a, like, something that I do not think I could go back to and be like, I'll ignore the story and just pay attention to everything else, because to me the story is such a important piece of a film that if I don't like the story, I probably won't go back.
All right. Cool. Any
But I highly suggest everybody see it. It's like, everybody should at least see it once.
all right. Well, then I will switch us over to Nobody Saves the World. This is the latest game from Drinkbox Studios, the team behind Guacamelee and Severed. And it came out on Game Pass a week or two ago. And I basically just like went through. I've not I 100%ed like my first playthrough of the game. And then like it opens up, it unlocks a new game plus, and the one achievement I'm not gonna get anytime soon is like beating new game plus. And that's not to say like because I love the game, I had a great time with it. I just don't want to like replay the, however many hours it would take for me to go through and do everything in a new game plus. At least it's the kind of thing I made the decision of like, if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do it for the platinum trophy when it eventually comes to PlayStation. Like I'll pick it up again and play it there. For those that don't know, Nobody Saves the World. You kind of wake up. It is very much inspired by like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, which absolutely speaks up my alley in terms of like you're on an open world map that you kind of go around collecting parts of a gem to unlock and save the world and stuff like that. And you kind of to go over these different like parts of the world, like this town that has been devastated by like a nuclear reactor, and so now it's just like mutants that live there, or this like nice chill like fishing village that is dealing with like the calamity, which is basically like the end of the world that is imminent if you don't save the day. um and yeah, there's just kind of like lots of like fun little biome type things in the game. You kind of wake up as an amnesiac kind of like androgynous character, um and you get thrust into this adventure where you pick up a magic wand that belongs to like the most powerful wizard of the land kind of thing. And with this wand you can start unlocking like other forms that you can kind of transform into. So when you're in your like basic like nobody form, you're largely weak and pathetic and can't like, eventually you can like start equipping different abilities and stuff, but you're almost never going to play this game in the nobody form. Like first form you unlock is a rat, and as a rat you can obviously go in like small areas that you can't fit in your nobody form, and you also start getting like the different abilities that you use to take out enemies. The rat in particular uses a lot of like dark abilities, because there's basically four like elemental types. There's dark, there's light, there's sharp, and there's blunt, basically. And for the most part, you can attack anybody with any kind of ability, but eventually, like, in certain areas, enemies will have wards where you'll need to like attack them and break their ward first, and then you can do damage. So like, if an enemy has a dark ward, I can't attack it with anything until I use a dark attack to break that ward, and then I can start doing damage to them. But if I tried to do like blunt damage to them or something, it wouldn't do anything. Um, you like every character has kind of their unique like base attack, and then you start unlocking as you do little quests. and the quest will be like, okay, yeah, bite as the rat, bite an enemy or bite like 50 enemies. And once you've, bit 50 enemies, you'll get like an experience boost that will both add to like your overall level, where you can level up through the game, as well as your form like experience points, where you can kind of level up the form from like a form is going to start at level F, and then you can kind of level up to level D, C, B, A, and every form has an S rank. And as you kind of work your way up, you start unlocking other abilities, and then and eventually there's like a little grid, where like once you've got the rat up to like level C, it unlocks the knight form and the rogue form. And once you have like the knight, up to such and such a rank, it will unlock other forms. And then once you have like these three forms at X, rank, you unlock, this big form or whatever. And so you're just kind of like constantly like progressing through, and again, each form has different abilities. Some of the forms have like different movement types. Like there are a few forms that you can swim in the water with. So that becomes handy in trying to kind of traverse around the world. And then eventually you'll reach a point in the game where you can start kind of like mixing and matching. So like I can take the abilities, on the rat, but I can mix in one of the abilities from the ghost and kind of mix and match that. You also have like passive abilities that you can kind of equip, to add status effects, or one of the ones I always used was, it's basically like the zombies innate passive, where as you attack enemies, like you'll regain like a percentage of your damage you'll regain back as health. Which it comes in handy because in the zombie form in particular, one of the like the little quirks and gimmicks of the zombie form is you are always dying. So your health is always like slowly dropping down. And so you need to basically consume other baddies to like restore your health, as you go. There's also like, money and health pickups that you can kind of find throughout the world. And it's basically just a fun little 2D action, action game, little action adventure, as you kind of traverse the world. There's, in addition to like the big dungeons that you're trying to, kind of find your gems in, there's also, a myriad of like demi dungeons and stuff scattered around the map, and a lot of them will have like little gimmicks too, where like you'll go into, there's one called like the big gnarly dungeon or whatever, and it's basically like it warns you up front that the gimmick of this dungeon is every damage dealt in the dungeon is like times 9,999. So like any hit you do is going to kill an enemy basically as a one hit kill, but any enemy against you can also potentially do a one hit kill. And so for like the trick of getting through that dungeon ends up being one of the abilities you get, is basically like, a hard shell or something. And that ability's innate level is, an attack can't do more than a quarter of your full health as damage. So suddenly now I've got 4 hits that I can take in that, gnarly dungeon without just immediately dying. And so it's
This
kind of
sounds
like
rad. This
it's kind
sounds
of like,
so rad.
yeah, it's like mixing and matching these abilities to kind of solve the puzzle of the dungeon, as well as just come up with like incredible combos. Like, one of my favorites that I would end up doing kind of eventually was one of your zombie abilities is, um you can bite an enemy and they will become infected, and when they die they become a zombie that fights alongside you. And
That's rad. Okay.
any person any enemy that zombie attacks automatically gets infected, so when they die, like it just kind of like, so you can like you can bite like a swarm of 4 enemies like surrounding you in one go. When they die, boom, you have like 4 new zombie enemies, and as like other enemies come and attack, and just like with your zombie form, those enemies or your zombie allies are constantly losing health. But you can get, there's a necromancer form, and one of the necromancer's abilities is any health you restore, like your familiars or or in this case zombies will also restore with you. So if you can like combine that with like the zombie consume and you're just constantly doing damage. There was like one point where I had like 30 zombies just like with me in a horde, and we were just kind of like clearing out a dungeon entirely. And so yeah, there's just a ton of like fun mixing and matching that you can do these kinds of things. As you're going through, you're also unlocking star points, which are basically like you need, in Super Mario 64 fashion, you need like 40 star points to like access the first dungeon you need to get into or something like that. And you're getting those through completing dungeons. You're getting them through like leveling up and completing quests, either in your form quests or just in miscellaneous other quests. One of my favorite little elements is from the shopkeeper. You can eventually start buying what are called like infinite quests, and it's basically like, oh, kill 200 baddies, and you kill 200 baddies, and then the quest just like reloads. It's like, okay, now this time kill 500 baddies, and each time you meet the requirements of that quest, it just restarts a counter, but you get like an experience boost and yeah. So you're everything you're doing, because even one of the infinite quests was like move around. So basically, like even walking around the map is like working on some kind of leveling up element. So that's one like currency that you're getting, is those star tokens. You're also getting, of course, again, money that you can use to buy um like stat power ups or star points, or like additional passive abilities that you can kind of like equip. um and then there's also like upgrade tokens that you get throughout the game, where you can use those and spend those to upgrade your abilities. And so like that hard shell attack where no attack can do more than a quarter of damage, in level 2 form is like no attack can do more than a fifth of your damage, of your health as damage. And so kind of like, the more you level these up, and even the level ups are going to be locked behind like like to do that, you have to have that form, up to, a level C form or something like that. Or, to get the max ability, it has to be at level A or something like that. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of like, it is a perfect game for what I was feeling for, because like there's just always something to be chasing. There's always some kind of like there's always some grind that I was after, whether it was I'm doing the quests to level up this particular form so that I can get another form and start unlocking their abilities, or like I now know what I need to do to get through this dungeon. I just need to get like the right mix and match of like forms and combos, to make it happen, kind of thing. The other real key element, I would say, in terms of just like the combat of the game, is each of your special abilities requires mana, and your base attack that you can use like will replenish mana with each hit, kind of thing. So it's basically like a kind of a management system there of, okay, I can do like the heavier hitting attacks, but if I do too many of them, I'm going to have zero mana, and then I'm not going to, I'm going to have to like rebuild up that meter by just doing some of the base level normal attacks. So a ton of fun. One of the elements I did not get to experience myself is it does have online co-op, so you can be running around with a partner. And so like I could have like a crazy, hectic build, and you could have like another crazy hectic build that just might like work entirely in tandem. There's a cool ability that the rat has that can detonate any enemy on the map that is poisoned, and basically they will explode, and it'll do a shit ton of damage to them. And so like if your character was running around poisoning every enemy, I can kind of wait until I see a whole bunch of like skulls around the map, and I can hit that detonate ability, and boom, like everybody explodes, everybody on the screen explodes basically.
Okay, that's rad.
And you,
Okay, man, this game sounds so good.
yeah.
Ah.
And you can do that yourself too. Like I often did that myself, where like I would go around, poison a whole bunch of enemies, and then hit the detonate button, and and just like watch everything around me just like boom, okay, I'm clear. The necromancer, another cool ability that they have is they can like rise, like they'll create familiars by rising like corpses from the dead. So if I go around, I explode a bunch of enemies, and then I'm like, you know what? I want a little demon friend. I use the familiar's ability. You can very quickly like switch forms mid battle, and the stats will adjust kind of like on the fly. So like the bodybuilder form is like a tank in terms of like has a huge HP meter, and if I switch from that to the egg form, immediately like like whatever percentage of HP I was at will like drop down to match the new eggs form kind of thing. um and so yeah, there's just like a seemingly endless supply of like mixing and matching. One of the things I really loved as I was progressing through the game is the little quests that they give you to kind of like continue leveling up your form will start like encouraging you to play with some of these fun combos. It'd be like, okay, as the bodybuilder, attack enemies with the robot's, attack type of this, 20 times or something like that. It's like, oh, I never thought to do that combination. So let me go ahead and swap in that. And it's like, oh, this feels really cool too. So the game itself is kind of encouraging you to find some of those like almost game breaking like builds that you can have. And yeah, it's just a ton of fun. A lot of the enemies and the dungeons in particular will like level up as you do. So like you're never you're never going in and like wasting your time going into a level. But there are other areas of the world where enemies won't level up, and so you'll be walking around as like a level 50 guy, and these level 30 enemies will just immediately cower in fear, and they'll start running away from you, a la like I think of like Earthbound or something like that, where you're just so overpowered and you can just basically one hit kill them. So you don't have to like deal with them as like little annoyances if you're not feeling like it, and you just kind of like be like, all right, I'm gonna plow through. It's a pretty solid fast travel system. There's like little guilds that you can join, that will give you additional quests. Like you can join basically a knight's guild, a maid's guild, and a thieves guild, and do a handful of little quests for each of them. So yeah, just a ton of fun to enjoy in Nobody Saves the World. And it's definitely one like I said, if I'm gonna go through and do that like new game plus run, I'm gonna wait and do it on PlayStation, so I can go get the platinum trophy for that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Nobody Saves the World. Any other questions or anything to add in there, Cam?
No, the only thing I really want to talk about is like, man, as somebody who has been a big fan of Drinkbox games for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
um, ever since I played the first Guacamelee, I've been really blown away by their ability to, like, they are a studio in Montreal. They're a Canadian studio. They did such an amazing job of capturing both in that and a lot of from Severed,
Mm-hmm.
um, capturing a lot of kind of like the southwestern kind of like folklore and traditions and stuff like that, whether it's in like um from like a lot of the southwestern,
All the lucha
Mexican,
stuff
yeah, the
of
luchas,
Guacamole, obviously. Yeah.
yeah, the lucha stuff, but also like like the both Native American and Mexican folklore and mythology that were put into those in the first two Guacameles. And then to top it all off with just Severed being a very more abstract kind of approach to something so different and so good and so cool. I've loved all of their games, but just the Nobody Saves the World just seems like it's a completely different kind of like venture outside of like what they've done before.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing what I've seen from clips and videos, and then also hearing what you've described, it's like they've really put in the work into taking all the things that made their other games amazing and really putting them into this game to like, and then doing stuff on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a massive fan of Drinkbox. I'm super excited for like the kind of like heavy praise they've been getting for Nobody Saves the World. I'm glad that it's a great game. Um, shout out to our friend George who did PR work with Pop Agenda on this, but yeah, I just think it just makes me so happy that just it's such a smash hit. So
Yeah, one of the things I thought about as you were kind of talking through that, yeah, it really doesn't have a lot of that the aesthetic that they've had of the last couple.
mhm,
Like, still has like a great charming art style, but it almost reminded me more like more Ren and Stimpy this time around than
mhm.
the vibes from Guacamelee and Severed. But it does still have a lot of the Drinkbox Studio like charm and humor to it. Like, one of the your kind of one of the like recurring figures in the game that kind of like goes alongside you is this character Randy the Magician. Randy the Rad is what he calls himself. And he's basically like
Yes.
he's the apprentice of the big major wizard in the land who's gone missing. And when you find the wand at the beginning of the game, and you're this literal nobody, he's like, you shouldn't have that, give me that. And he like, he gives you like he basically like demands you go make him some coffee. And he has like a very pretentious kind of coffee order, and he's just like such a jerk. And you're like, when he's like, give me the wand, like your basically responses are no, or like no jerk or something like that. And it's basically like you basically get to call him out for being a dick as you can. And each time you kind of encounter him, like, he'll routinely pop back up at the end of like the big major dungeons. Like, you'll go beat the boss, and then he'll kind of come in being like, haha, I caught up with you, now give me the wand. And like he ends up kind of suffering just like a series of like, he'll try and cast a spell on you, but it backfires and does damage to him or something like that.
That's
Or
awesome.
he'll
Okay.
he'll get like buried in a cave in, and a boulder will come, and the next time he comes at, like, he walks like limping in, like leg in a cast kind of thing. And so he's just kind of like your perpetual foil throughout the game, in a real fun and interesting way. A lot of the quests and stuff are, just full of tongue-in-cheek humor. um and again, like, just some of the absurdity of some of the forms, like like one of them is just a literal bodybuilder where you're like in a speedo with like giant rippling muscles, and your attack is you hurl barbells at people. um and like one of your abilities there is called flex, and it's basically like you pop a flex, it gives you like attack boost kind of bonus, and also does like a wave of damage in your immediate vicinity, so like any enemies around you will like just get like hurt by your flex. And so yeah, just there's a ton of fun and humor to the game that is also, like, this is very much a gameplay first kind of game. But when you and there were like entire nights where I was like, I'm just going to be doing the quests to level up these forms. Like, I've reached the point in the game where like I'm nearing the end game now. I just want to get every form to level S, so I'm gonna go back to that rat form that I haven't used in 5 hours, and I'm just going to do all their quests and kind of get them up to level. I'm going to grind out and get them up to level S, and start kind of like moving on. And so there were like a couple of nights there where I didn't progress the main game at all. I just went through and was like having fun doing different like combinations of abilities and grinding up like each of the different. I think there's like 15 forms throughout the game that you can collect. And yeah, just a ton of fun. But then when I did decide to go back into the story and stuff, having a good time there as well. So shout out to Nobody Saves the World. Definitely an early contender for Game of the Year stuff here in 2022 for me. Speaking of, let's hop over. You started up one of this was one of my Game of the Years in 2020, a couple years ago. Tell me a little bit about your early thoughts of Haven.
I love it. Um, Man, I did not know I could fall in love with a game so quickly. Uh, the intro was like kind of like abstract and like whatever, but literally the first 5 minutes of that game, you immediately pick up on this like incredible chemistry between these two characters. And you're like, I really just want to like, I don't I don't necessarily want them to tell me like the backstory, but I want to know more about these characters. I want to know more about the apiary that it came from. I want to know more about like the struggles of the matchmaker and like this whole thing. And
Of course, you
it's
want the lore.
delivered. I want the lore. But at the same time, I also love the exploration of this game. This game has a it can definitely be a unforgiving combat system in a lot
Mhm.
of ways. Because even like blocking doesn't necessarily reduce all damage to zero. It like just halves it. And sometimes when I want to clear out an island, like sometimes those creatures, those baddies can be real tough. And in dealing with like a big one at the beginning of like your day slash journey means that you're going to be cutting yourself short by the end by like pretty soon. And so like I've disliked that aspect of it, but other than that, I think I've fallen in love with just about every aspect of this game.
Mhm.
Whether it's the creatures, it's the exploration, it's the idea of like you're rebuilding your ship slash home to, and you're trying to do so many different things in this game, and then you end up finding out some interesting stuff. I've gotten to the point where I've went like wise time. They like there was the contact made, and then they decided that they weren't going to deal with that, and then they got separated, and now they've just gotten back together.
Mm.
So,
Gotcha.
um, I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
It's yeah, no, I mean, I like, I was definitely worried because 'cause you're like, story-wise, I was like, "Oh, it's been a couple years." I don't remember, like, the ins and outs of the story, but I do remember, like, those big elements of, like, okay, yep,
Yeah.
you like because so much of the game is and so much of the combat in particular is, like, you're controlling both of these characters in tandem. Um and so you have to like you have to be working both sides of the brain slash screen to figure out, okay, I need to be blocking with this with this character, and then using this ability with the other character, and how do I make that happen with my thumbs. um
Mhm.
but yeah, then I remember the big the big story beat of, yeah, like the two are separated, and immediately go on a quest to try and find your partner, and reunite them. um it's very much a game. I loved the relationship between you and Kay, your central characters, your couple basically. I love that, and I could have like you could have taken the combat out of the game entirely, and I still would have had a great time. Like, and I would have had probably a better time because, yeah, a lot of those combat things, I was like, I'm stressed because I can't figure out the thing I need to do to take this enemy out.
And by
Um,
the time I figure it out, I'm already
yeah,
past
I'm already
halfway in
almost
health.
dead,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah.
I've got no health things that I can like restore, or and yeah, that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a pretty tough game, but I've really found myself really enjoying it. I love the idea of just gliding over these platforms and like, oh, I need to get up there. Well, I can't climb up there. There's no way for me to get up there. Okay, well, I have to find what flow line there is to that takes me up there. And
Mhm.
sometimes there isn't one, so you have to figure out something else. And it's been a really great experience. I don't know how much more time I'm going to be putting into it, just because games are rolling out, man. Like we talked about it off stream, off recording, the other day. But man, like it is getting real. Like the release schedule for stuff is launching. Um, and like it's round, like there's taken up a lot of time, but I can't say even if I don't go back to it, I've enjoyed so much of what I've experienced out of it. I can definitely understand why this was a game of the year. I can understand like why it was such a big deal for so many people, and I've just really come to love this couple, and I just want them to be happy.
Yeah. Haven was definitely something special. I definitely recommend it. So like when you were like, "Yeah, I've been playing Haven," I was like, "Oh, that's awesome," because like, yeah, we hadn't talked about it. I didn't know that you were hopping into that one. Um, and yeah, it was very much one that I was so glad I put the time into it back in 2019. I had like, yeah, it's just like it is my favorite. They're my favorite video game couple, I think. They basically
Nice.
like surpassed Nate and Elena, just like in large part because like there's like one or two little tiffs that they have, but like for the most part they are 100% on each other's side. And it was like relationship goals. I think I also played it sometime in the aftermath of having read like all of Saga up to that point, which shout out to Saga now
Nice.
being
Yeah.
back. And there like it definitely gives a lot of like Saga vibes, of this like star-crossed couple, fighting against the universe, kind of that doesn't want them to be apart, or that doesn't want them to be together. So yeah, it was just kind of like cool vibes of that. But yeah. Haven's definitely a really, really special thing, and like such great writing. So I love, and I love that, like, as you kind of progress through that world and start finding like what would be like considered like the collectibles, like you'll go back to the ship kind of at the end of the day or at night or whatever, and you'll just have a cutscene where your two like your characters just like talk about that thing, or
Muffin and
or
cupcake. Muffin and cupcake.
muffin and cupcake, yeah. And like you just get like just fun, delightful scenes between your
Dude,
two characters.
Kay playing with him and like reenacting an episode from the show, and then you being like, "Hey, can I play?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure." And then immediately you just makes it incredibly sexual,
Hmm.
and it's just like, and you it just immediately Kay's like, "You've ruined my childhood. I'm walking away."
Yeah,
And it's so
yeah.
good.
They are,
Like I love it. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, it's so good. Like there's so many things that they do that it's just like this is relationship goals. This is the kind of person you want. And I loved that I loved that it was a the like the story of when you realized she was in love with Kay was um he had stupidly kept her in the cold and she had developed a cold and so she was in bed and so he made her cookies um to make her feel better. And it's just like they're such a good couple because like they are so incredibly different. Um but at the same time, oh my gosh, one of my favorite things was they were in like a plant, like a greenhouse, and she goes, "Wait, what? So what was your title?" And he goes it, and it's like there's like both junior and assistant in the title, and she goes, "So what? Like, what was it with that?" He goes, "Oh, that was just their excuse to pay me less." He goes, "I had the full run of the lab, like I was in charge of it, but like that was their reason for not having to pay me as much." And she goes, and her first reaction goes, "Yeah, that sounds like my mother." And she's just like, "Oh."
Mhm.
And that's the first time you get like a peek. It's like, wait a minute, what? And then you realize like her mom was like his boss, and like it's the way that they came in, like, and then you get notes of like her being coming from like a very elite like top tier family in society, and he's like from a foster home,
Mhm.
and like you just get like the tandems of their lives, and then also the incredible beautiful art in the loading screens that just tell the story of like this just wonderful couple who struggle and want to be together. And oh my gosh, and then when it's just like they're being quote unquote called out for it, and they just like they're like, no, like where what's right, where what's natural, like it's so good. It's so good, man. I've really enjoyed my time with it. I really want to spend more time with it, but I'm also getting to a point where like it's the game's like ramping up its difficulty, and I don't know how much more time I have in it before I have to like bounce.
Yeah, that's fair. It very much like as the end game approached there, I got like I basically got really into like I'm just gonna cook and stock up like the things that'll like restore everything for me, and I would have like I'd go out and have like a batch of those things because I was like I know I'm gonna get walloped in a couple of these fights, so I'll deal with that and then I'll heal myself up and go and do the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah. Shout out to Haven. So let's wrap up then with Pokemon Legends Arceus. Seen everybody kind of talking about this one, and it seems to be the Pokemon game that everybody's been wanting for a long, long time. So what are your thoughts here? How far into it, and what are your thoughts on Pokemon Legends Arceus so far?
I'm about 3 hours into it and really only about an hour maybe ish into its story. Um this is a like I'll put it out there. This is a really complicated game. And when I say that, I mean it in a way of kind of phrasing it within this kind of like framework of this game gives you a lot of what you've been wanting out of Pokemon games for a long time, but it has a singular major glaring issue. And for me, it is that like how do I put this? This game can look rough, man. Like I'm talking 480p on the Nintendo DS level 3D graphics at some points.
Hmm.
Like the textures are not there for this game. Like holy crap, there are like the textures can just be a massive issue.
Are you playing?
Um,
Are you playing it on a screen, or are you only playing in handheld mode?
on a screen,
Okay. That's I
but
imagine that's like, because I remember that was the exact same issue, like going back to Breath of the Wild, was like, oh, it looks fine in handheld mode, but yeah, when you put it up on a big screen, it's like, oh, this does not look like, this is a handheld device that they've made, you know be able to transfer to a screen, but that does not mean it was designed for the big screen experience.
which is so weird because Pokemon Sword and Shield I felt like transitioned to a larger screen very well. Like it has some of its issues of it going from handheld to screen, but I don't know. I kind of expected it to be a bit more on the polish end of things with Pokemon Sword and Shield, but it's come off like real rough in a lot of places. Like there's like because of a low textures in the game, light has like a weird effect in places, and it doesn't necessarily always work well. That aside, I think like it's doing something very interesting of like they make a heavy emphasis on people being afraid of Pokemon at this point in time.
Yeah, so I
Like,
mean, like, I only actually figured out what the game was about like a day or two ago, because I pretty much
mhm.
was like, I'm my days of Pokemon are done at this point. I'm not gonna hop into this. So I wasn't really paying attention to a lot of the lead up stuff. So just as a kind of like broad overview, you're basically sent back in time, and you're tasked with, or you've kind of like, you're going to build the first Pokedex. And so yeah, this is in an era where like people and Pokemon were not working in simpatico with each other. They are
Nope.
wild animals that will mess up your day.
Oh yeah, and in this game they will.
Yeah.
I tried to catch a Rapidash that was a lot. I didn't know at the time, but was a lot higher level than I was.
Uh-huh.
And after it wiped out a Pokemon, I said, "Cool, I'm going to run away." It
And
charged after me.
yeah,
It
it'll do
charged
that.
after me in the overworld, like in the
Had
quote
one of
unquote
them,
overworld.
had some of those red eyes.
Yeah, it had a red eyes, and did it like messed me up.
It's
It
basically,
knocked me into next week,
it
man.
is the Lionel from Breath of the Wild kind of enemy of like this. Yeah, this one will not give you a good time.
Like
Yeah,
avoid
I've
these
seen some
ones,
of that
and
stuff.
yeah, that's happened. But yeah, like I think that it's actually very interesting the fact that it's like, yeah, you charge into capture Pokemon with no problem. Like you're not even scared of them a little bit. And it's like, nope. And I like part of one of the things I really liked about it though is that in order to gather resources, you use your Pokemon to, because here's the thing, you can throw your Pokemon out from their ball and they'll just be out of their ball, like in the world with.
Hmm.
If you target their Pokeball to a tree that has fruit on it or a like mineable stone, in order to gather that resource, you throw the Pokeball at it. The Pokemon pops out of it, attacks it, like attacks the tree or the stone, and then you get the resources from it. And it's done super well. It's super cool. And like yeah, and on top of that, it gives a little bit of experience to your Pokemon for that. So it's like it's a cool, neat way of like even if you are slowly gaining experience as you do things. The way that kind of they did that same thing in the Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee series, and that includes catching Pokemon. You can run around just catching Pokemon and Pokeballs and level up your Pokemon that way, like you do in those games. It's done a lot of taking like some really cool concepts and putting them into a singular game. But one of the things I've really found very fascinating about it is because it's like people are like, oh yeah, like what's the deal with the premise? It's like, well, the premise is essentially God decides he needs you to go back into the past and like build a Pokedex and gives you a God phone directive that has like that directive on it. Like, you have a job, fill up a Pokedex, catch all the Pokemon. That's your job. And it's like, well, who are you to tell me? It's like, it's God. God is a Pokemon
I
in
am
this
the god
universe.
Pokemon, Arceus. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the god Pokemon Arceus. You're gonna do what I tell you to, you little brat. Like, I was blown away by like how like on the nose they've been about a lot of things. But one thing that definitely surprised me and kind of has like blown my mind is they have revealed that the Pokeballs don't shrink Pokemon. the Pokeballs use the ability that Pokemon have to shrink themselves to put and like uses that to like basically force them to shrink themselves, which is
Hey,
brand new lore to me.
I was gonna say that sounds like lore 25 years in the making or whatever.
Like that revelation for me was massive. It blew my mind because it means this entire time when Pokemon, like Pokemon have the ability to minimize themselves at will, or at least you could make the argument, well, it was the way back then. And I guess that's their way of explaining why Pokemon can like disappear on you. Maybe it's that. Maybe this has always been
Oh yeah, like
on a Poke
the
Freak document from like 1994. Like this is like
yeah.
from it. Yeah.
When
like,
the Pokemon got away, they just shrunk back into the wild grass. They didn't dart away anywhere. They just disappeared because Honey, I Shrunk themselves.
Like, is that the reasoning? Is that like what the because here's the thing, is this directly coming from like a 1995 document from Poke Freak when they were like breaking down Pokeballs and how they work and are used in the game? Like, is that like some throw in it way note that somebody threw on there and now that's like a massive revelation of a canon point?
It definitely seems like something that should have been covered in one of those early seasons of the anime. Like,
for sure.
It feels like something Ash should have asked at one point of like, wait, but how does it work? Especially because they were like, I remember in like Gold and Silver, there's like an entire guy who takes acorns and builds Pokeballs.
You do that in this game, actually. So you are actually building out like OG Pokeballs from acorns that you find.
Yeah.
And it's that aspect of it I like a lot. I like the idea of there's a crafting bench where you put together your own Pokeballs. And it makes you feel like it feels really rewarding doing that. Yeah, you can put together your own potions, your own whole things that you can do for yourself. And you can get recipes by, there's no gyms in this game. Instead, based upon the percentage of the Pokedex that you've completed, you gain a star from the organization, which is essentially like the prototype of Team Galaxy from Diamond and Pearl. But instead, they are like a survey corps that is there to help establish themselves in this town to kind of like figure out Pokemon. And it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. Like, I've been really enjoyed it. I haven't put too much time into it. Like I said, I'm only about 3 hours into the game, only about like less than an hour into the story. But there's a lot of fun to be had by this game.
If you can look over the graphical stuff.
if you are not
it's the inverse of Belle.
Yeah. If this is the thing, if you are not put off by how butt ugly this game can look sometimes, you'll do well. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But man, this like sometimes you run across something that's like, man, it looks like when they were doing textures, this thing got hit by the ugly texture stick instead of like an actual texture. Like it's just bad in some places, man.
Yeah.
But overall, gameplay loop is super fun.
Cool.
And I'm not surprised that it's really caught on for a lot of people either.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like, for the longest time, people have been looking to like switch up the formula of, I don't want to just, battle the Pokemon and do the turn-based RPG stuff and take out the gyms. Like, give me a more, open experience where I can, run around with my Pokemon. I can like catch them out in the field, or, like, because there's very much like I guess it's still probably turn-based, but I was seeing something that there's effectively like a Bravely Default style or type of attack system here, where you can do like, you can store up abilities to like go quicker, or you can like use a big heavy ability and it's gonna delay your turn.
Yeah, it does that. It also has a there are some specialty moves for a Pokemon that they can use them either standard or within like the style for the Pokemon. For example, there are like strong styles, fast, like swift styles, type thing. Like my Rowlet's gust ability, I can turn it into a strong style gust, so it does more damage. But like you said, it means that he's gonna go slower the next time. So if I'm going up against a quick Pokemon like Sphinx that is using quick attack, it's going to go before my Pokemon twice.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you have to think about these things when you're doing it. And it's super cool. Like, it's super fun. It points out, it's like, you look like you're 15, and it's like, cool, good to know, like, we're a little bit older. But by that point, you should also mention, I'm probably a Pokemon master or like a champion from like a league somewhere, right?
Yeah, probably. That's the other thing. Like you said, with that Rapidash, like not only is it taking out your Pokemon, it will take you out, and like
Yeah,
and you like you have a health bar in this game that you also have to manage and try and like deal with. So,
yeah, because in battle, the Pokemon can either target your Pokemon or it can target you too in the battle.
mhm.
So you have to like be aware and like dodge out of the way of things. It's super cool. I've really enjoyed it. I want to get more into the meat of the game itself. I'm looking forward to getting more into it over the next couple of days. Yeah, but yeah, it's been super good.
Cool. It's I'm standing strong on my like I'm not interested in hopping back into Pokemon, but I'm glad so many people are finally getting this game that they've wanted. I wish that as I do with most Nintendo things, that it looked better and made some more investment in some of those resources and decisions. But for everything else, it sounds like it's scratching the itch for a lot of people right now. So
Yep.
shout
Well,
out
it's
to that.
yeah, it's fun. It's funny because a lot of these mechanics and like a lot of this stuff is taken from like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, which um was itself like a thing at the time that it was in.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for this week's episode of That Nerdy Site Show. Thank you, Cam, for sitting down and joining me to talk through all these things. Let's go around the metaphorical table with any plugs we might have. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
yeah, I definitely want to give a massive shout out to thatnerdysite.com. It's having some articles for Game of the Year put up, kind of wrapping up January with that. But also it has the links into the YouTube page to check out a lot of the Let's Plays and podcasts that we have up there now. So
Cool. Yeah, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will echo the shout out to the website there, especially like there's a good chunk of time during the pandemic where it was basically just the podcasts and let's plays that are going up like daily. But we're getting some written stuff back up there with our game of the year list with Logan's weekly write-ups of his Bond thoughts. Having to like turn my mind back into editor mode for that has been has been a lot the last month or so. Um, and yeah, just a shout out as well to our Let's Plays that go up every Tuesday and Thursday over on youtube.com/that nerdy site. You can go watch what may be my best game of Fortnite ever. And if you want, Cam, you can go be like, this game sucks and write that in the comments or whatever. I don't care. I'll take the engagement.
I just might, Trevor. Don't test me.
Yeah.
I just might.
Uh,
Don't tempt me with a good time, Trevor.
I'm looking ahead. I've already got a couple episodes scheduled for this week, including some more Xbox Game Pass games. Ember and the Forgotten City are gonna have Let's Plays up this week. And then I'm looking ahead, I'm realizing that on the first the Life is Strange remastered collection comes out, which I technically already own because I bought the Ultimate Edition of True Colors. So I'm like sitting here and thinking like, maybe I'm just going to do a series of Let's Plays that are going to be like a full playthrough of the original Life is Strange here in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. I will probably at least do like the first episode, as I tend to do in those kinds of things. But yeah, that might just be like, I'm just going to record my whole like revisit of this game because there's definitely a lot of things I'm sure I do not remember about about that game from 2015, I think is when I played it. Yeah. So yeah, check out all that stuff. Again, thatnerdysite.com works as a great little central hub of everything, but most of if not everything else is going out there to youtube.com/thatnerdysite. So yeah, check out all that fun stuff. Follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you again for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.
And congratulations to the Cincinnati Bengals. You're going to the Super Bowl.
Neat.